I don't know where exactly it comes from or like what that moment is, but there's this like leap of faith that you have to take because there's so much unknown. Calling on behalf of Usher Raymond, and I was like, wait, what?
At that point, in that moment, did you still know you were Jonni Cheatwood?
Welcome to the Jasmine Star Show, a place where we get to talk about life, business, and today, a heavy emphasis on creativity. I am joined yet again by my guest co-host, Marcus Murphy, who's feeling a little inferior at this moment because sitting next to his two people at the table today. It's Jasmine Star and Jonni Cheatwood. And with those names, Marcus Murphy just sounds like Wonder Bread.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, this is
Marcus,
Marcus Mayo Murphy.
Yeah, say something. Mayo.
Plain is all get out.
It better be olive oil mayo because it's the best.
This guy's living in California 2 weeks and he's talking about olive oil mayo.
I'm a vegan now.
Oh, vegan
now. I have a longboard.
Are you vegan now?
I just started a little bit.
Oh,
like I said, 2 weeks in California, and now he's a vegan.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Look at this.
Marcus Vegan Murphy.
Hey.
Oh, you would know. You would know.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jonni Cheatwood is an artist. And I'm not going to say anything beyond more than that because we're going to get into the story. But the reason why I was very intrigued, like I had mentioned before, Marcus had a list of names and we were trying to curate the right people, the right mix, and serve really well. And so when I saw like a thoroughbred of an artist, I was like, okay, let's talk here. Except for the fact that I'm not here to talk about what it is to be an artist. I really want to focus on the origin story, the monetization, having a career that is driven by art. So few people do that. It is intriguing to see and on such a scale. And so I mean, Jonni Cheatwood, welcome to the Jasmine Star Show. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm very, very, very honored. Marcus?
I'm so happy. You have no idea. Here's the thing. Johnny and I are friends, which is nice. And I've had a front row seat to this entire journey before Jonni Cheatwood was Jonni Cheatwood. But also at the same time, I'm a fan. Like I'm a massive fan.
Thank
and
you.
if people will see in the B-roll your amazing work, but I'm a fan just of understanding how crazy the process is and being able to watch it from the beginning to the end and watching your art evolve over the years to what it is today. So dude, yes, this conversation is going to be amazing and all those things, but also just huge fan. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I knew his I wasn't gonna say fandom, but it's more like fanboy. Like I knew of his fanboy tendencies because what he was posting on social.
I feel like it's like come be a co-host because I'm going to kick you down the road.
I'm gonna kick you into success.
Just making fun of your name, not just making fun of you.
I know. No. It's like I know it's as distorted as it is. If I make fun of you, it means I really like you.
it's
Jacked up. I'm already saving for my daughter's therapy. But Jonni.
Hi.
When Marcus started posting a lot of your work, I think you went to one of his shows. Like we were
in London. Yeah, we went to that one, because that was right on the tail end of like BLM and all those things.
Yeah.
And I was like blown away by that specific show in London. Yeah.
Beers, London.
Yeah. And so that's when I was first exposed to your work. And so the fact that you're sitting in the living room, thank you. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's start with the origin story. Let's kind of like set the story. Okay. And I know that there could be a perspective where people see you now and maybe do light digging and kind of see like what is a lot of the origin on the outside. But if we go back a little bit deeper, like how did you get here?
I have no idea. To be honest with you. I mean, I grew up in a home that was filled with art. Like my dad was in music. We had records playing all the time. My mom did interior design. I played sports my whole life, but also kind of like the kid that was on the team that was a little bit weird, always going to art museums and like doing that whole thing. And so I was exposed to art early on.
Where are you from?
I'm actually from Thousand Oaks, Ventura County.
Okay, yeah.
But I kind of moved around all over Ventura County, so very like transient childhood. Graduated high school from Westlake and Westlake Village, and then I moved to Arizona. And
so in high school, did you hang out with the art kids? Like, what was your vibe?
No,
like,
I was an athlete. So I was playing football, basketball. I played volleyball for a year, and then I actually went to college to play basketball in
what school?
Northern Arizona.
Okay,
didn't work out.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Did not work out at all.
That was flag, right? Flag staff? Yeah.
But why didn't it work out?
It was something that I think my dad wanted me to do, but like I was never really into sports like that. I just like wanted to hang out with my friends, and it was the only thing I was kind of good at the time. So like it was something like I'll just go to college and sit on the bench for 4 years and go play pro in Mexico or something, that type of thing. That was kind of like my trajectory. So
can we stop there for a sec?
Sure.
When you say I think maybe my dad wanted to do it, was it something that he explicitly said, or is it just like son, this is what we do?
I mean, it was just kind of like, what else am I going to do? You know, so it was kind of like everything that I'd done until that point was for me to go play basketball. And so like,
Okay.
you know, I played AAU ball growing up. I did that whole thing. So,
Okay.
but I took like a couple art classes in high school, and, you know, it was like nothing. It was just kind of something like, oh, I can kind of draw. And I just needed the AP credits.
It's crazy. So this is where I want everybody to understand. It's like, yes, basketball, all that stuff, but where you are now, these big international shows, like if you just start going backwards from that to a guy who's like, well, I kind of took some art one time and I could kind of draw.
Sure.
That blows my mind.
Yeah. Well, there's that part of it. Once art became my like interest, that became my passion, which eventually became my career. There's so much that goes into what I'm doing now to get me to like the next level, that type of thing. So it's not just like, oh, I just kind of took art, you know, that's all I can do. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. But now it's like, no, I'm dedicating like my whole life to this. And I've seen where it's taken me so far. And I see where hopefully it can take me in the future.
It's so few people in art in general that make it at all, like zero. And so, I want to know like some of the things that were maybe early leading indicators. Because look, you're a successful person whether you pick up a paintbrush or not.
Yeah.
Or basketball.
Yeah, or any of that, right? So there is probably some actual makeup and some ways that you think and the way that you view the world that I'm very interested in terms of that. Because the other thing I want to say is kind of a two-parter is where I met you, we were both like struggling, right?
Yeah.
Like
how'd you guys meet?
Yeah, so we met a long time ago through a mutual friend, but it was really funny because we might as well have been living like on the couch somewhere. And like
I was living on the couch.
and I laugh because at that point, in that moment, did you still know you were Jonni Cheatwood? And what I mean by that question is, Jonni Cheatwood now, the guy that I met, we were struggling, whatever. Was there something inside of you that was like, yeah, but I know that there's something else here?
You know what? I think so, but I never knew it. So I think there was something in me that was just like, I'm going to make something of myself. I don't know what that is yet. I went to film school for a bit and I just hated it. So I ended up dropping out. Then I was like, I'm just going to be a teacher. And then I hated that. So like I just dropped out of school completely. Started working in restaurants full time, that whole thing.
Wait.
Yeah.
See, so
Yeah.
this is like, I'm like, I need to know the story.
I've lived
like,
a lot of lives.
Yeah.
So you're in
it's fun.
Flagstaff, and I'm
Yeah,
peeling
but-
it back a little bit. Sorry, Marcus.
Yeah, no, it's all right.
So you're in Flagstaff.
Yeah,
You just think you're going to ride the bench for 4 years and then go play in Mexico.
sure.
Okay.
I mean, yeah,
You're like-
ideally, yeah.
Well, you were kind of like open, right? You're just like very fluid at this point. Like,
I'm very go with the flow.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
always have been.
And so then you said a year into it, you knew it just wasn't for you.
Yeah, I got kicked off the team basically because of grades. And
Okay.
just like I never really applied myself to anything.
Okay.
And I just didn't want to. You know, like there's nothing there for me, you know.
So
So, I was
then
just,
do you leave Arizona and you go back to Ventura County?
no. I actually moved to Phoenix.
Okay.
That's where
and
we met for the first
That's where we met. Yeah. So
with my Phoenix days way back. Well, I feel like everybody had to go through the desert to find the water. You know what I'm saying?
Hey.
Huh? Okay. But it was those.
Marcus Mayo.
Hey.
You can't use that. But it is true though that I feel like we met at a desert season of life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was cool because you know when you like meet other people and you kind of feel that it's like this kindredness that
Yes.
you have. I think that's when I was like, okay, cool. This guy isn't the guy that's like going to quit all this stuff. He was finding what he liked and what he would like. That's how I think you're a journeyman. It's how I
Yeah.
felt when I first met you.
It's cool that I give off that energy because I mean, I totally am, you know, and a lot of my life has kind of been what actually works for me. Like I felt like I had to try so many different things to figure out like, does this serve me? Is this going to take me anywhere? Is this not going to work? I don't like that right away. So I'm just not, you know, that type of thing. And I've always kind of had this deep desire to like understand myself and also like understand like who I want to be. Is that, if that makes sense, you know?
You're talking to two people who literally like that has what we do all
Sure,
the time. So, yeah.
Sure.
Can I stop for a second?
Yeah, anytime. Yeah.
So I wonder though, when you had said, I'm asking myself, does it serve me?
Yeah.
I'm letting go of what doesn't serve me. And like, to me, all I hear is like, that feels very courageous. Like there's a lot of people who stay in situations that's not
Yeah.
serving them. So is this an innate quality? How did you sharpen it? Like somebody's listening and saying, listen, like Jonni, I know I'm not going to apply myself to grades
Sure.
or to being a teacher. Walk us through what your brain does that somebody else might apply it?
I wish I can articulate like what my brain actually, I don't know. I think being an artist or like any type of creative, there is this like, I don't know where exactly it comes from or like what that moment is, but there's this like leap of faith that you have to take because there's so much unknown, especially like Marcus, you said earlier, like so few people make it as an artist, and it's true. I mean, there's a lot of artists, but like to have a career as an artist, I don't understand the art world and that's okay. But like, I know that what I'm doing is what I need to be doing because it's all I
want to do.
It's all I want to do. Yeah. But it's like the only thing like I'm passionate about. And it's like the only thing that I've ever like, seen through in my life because like you'll try so many things and kind of like what I'm saying is like what serves me. So like you start so many different ideas or these like business plans or these like relationships or whatever. And like things just fizzle out and some things just don't work. And being an artist is the only thing that really like I've ever worked hard at. And it's the only thing that actually just that's the only thing I'm passionate about, I guess.
There's
and like,
there's something to unpack there though.
Yeah.
No, that's in a good way. I'm saying that if you're a listener right now and you're thinking about this, I think as a business owner and as a creative, you deal with two things. One, you can get a reputation as somebody who just starts things and doesn't finish them, which is interesting, right? I want to talk about moving away from that identity a little bit, but in that reputation, but also like dealing with failure. And I want to ask it because I bet you in your brain, you don't look at those things as failures. Is that, am I okay to say that? Or do you think you saw them as like, this didn't work?
I mean, I see them as this just didn't work. And now I have that gained experience and that gained knowledge. And now I know what doesn't serve me, and just being okay with that and just moving forward and kind of figuring out like, where is my place in this, in this ecosystem of the art world or that type of thing.
It applies so hard to me because I'm a person who really cares a lot about what other people think. And so what I think I'm trying to get at is you're very unique in that way. I've never actually seen you care a lot about what people think. And I know you're on social and I know a lot of people like follow you and stuff, but tell me about your mindset around that because I think sometimes that can be really crippling. And
it's really interesting for me because I am someone that I don't generally care. I think because I'm human, like I want to like be recognized for the work I do and all that stuff. And also like, there's the art markets and there's like strategy that has to like go into making this career actually work for you because like the art world is wild. I care, but I don't care. And it's always like this like tug of war that I'm always having with myself because like I just want to make the work and just make it be about the work and not care about other people's input in like what I'm doing. But at the same time, like I have to figure out how to care about certain things because it's my career and like it's my livelihood. It's everything. Being an artist is more or less like my identity at this point, just because like I'm actually putting myself on canvas and all that stuff.
Okay, but, so we're here and art is your identity, and then there's somebody who's listening and they believe it's their identity, but they haven't like embraced it. So if we go back to the guy who moved to Phoenix. And realize that teaching, it wasn't a failure. It was, a life lesson learned. It was the learned experience and it wasn't for you. And then you went into waiting tables.
I moved back to Phoenix in moved to Phoenix in like 2006. And I was going to school for like 2 years. I was at Arizona State, hating everything, but having a good time. And I just dropped out of school. Like I couldn't afford it anymore. So I started working in restaurants. And I was, if you work in restaurants, you have like double shifts and all that stuff. And I was like, just tired, just like spent, all that stuff. I kind of got to a point where I wasn't painting at this point. I wasn't even really into art like that. But I got to a point where I was like, I just need something. Like I need like an outlet. And it's looking back at it now, I'm kind of like, wow, like I knew back then I needed an outlet. Wow. So I feel like most people don't realize that, but like there's like I don't know what it was.
That's great.
But like go back. You need an outlet. And then what do? You go to Michael's? You go to Home Depot? Like where does one begin?
It's actually really funny. So like I never like outwardly said like, oh, I want to paint, It was just kind of something that I was kind of interested in. Like I would see like the Shepherd Ferry, like Obey and like all that stuff, like the street art. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I was like, I just kind of want to learn how to paint. So I came home back to California for like a Christmas break. And my sister was friends with the guy who worked at this like art supply store. I think she had like taken him from the store, but she had like a bunch, like this like really good like golden paint, like stuff I use now, and like these like all these like brushes and all this stuff, and I was like, I'm taking these back to Arizona. So I literally just took them for my sister, and then took them back to Arizona and just started painting.
So you started painting. Do I understand it? Like you started painting with like quality stuff at the beginning, like.
Yeah.
If you talk about gold paint, like
I mean,
that's
it was stolen.
That's not
I mean,
tempera.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, so I had good quality stuff from the jump. So,
Hey!
but yeah, so
Wow.
I brought that stuff back with me, and I started painting. And
But what did you paint on? Canvas, paper, walls? Like what was
paper,
coming to you?
canvas. Like I would like go in the alleys and like find like old chairs and like kind of like sand them and like paint the little seats on the chairs and paint like desks I would find and. Yes, anything I could.
And so you're doing this like before, in the middle, after double shifts? Like this is how you are like.
Yeah, I mean, on my days off, like I would just paint. Or like I would get home early, or not early, but like get home at like midnight and just like stay up to like 4 and just like.
It was a surprise to us. Like as the friend group,
Yeah.
It was like, oh, Johnny paints now? Johnny paints now.
Yeah.
Like, but not just like Johnny's painting stuff. Like, no, Johnny is a painter now? Like, because it was like, yo, Johnny was a barista yesterday, right? And making us our hot toddies and stuff. And now it's like crazy because I remember the first one that caught my eye was that you did a dripping technique, right? And that was like a lot of. And what's interesting to me is like, I thought about it as art because of the finished product. You thought about it as art as the process.
Yeah.
And I think that that's interesting because it's evolved over time.
Yeah.
And when I look at your work and when I watch like this kind of evolution, some part of me kind of still is and baffled by it because it just felt so abrupt. And by the way, this wasn't 20 years of like your whatever. This has been a rapid journey, like a really quick start.
When did you steal the paint from your sister? What year is this?
This is probably like
I think we got that wrong.
2008, 2009, somewhere in there.
Okay. And then Johnny the barista turns into Johnny the painter. And then like at what point do people
When
actually
did somebody pay you for your painting?
Yeah.
For the first time?
What was that?
Who paid you? When did you get paid for?
It was a painting I wasn't even finished with yet, but a friend of mine, Ethan, I was like painting in my front yard in like my apartment, and he's like, "Hey, are you done with that?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, I want to buy it," and I was like, "Okay, cool." That I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, "How much is your rent?" And I was like, $150. He's like, "I'll pay your rent." So I was like, "Okay, cool." That type of thing.
Wow.
Yeah. But also, how crazy my rent was $150.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the thing he points out from the story.
We got way more than that, yeah.
Okay, so Ethan, is he somebody, he lives in the apartment complex?
He was just like a part of like the friend group.
Okay.
So,
And so then did he take the unfinished piece or did you,
Yeah.
he took the
I think he
unfinished
still
piece?
has it too, yeah.
Oh, dang, somebody came
Yeah,
up.
I was gonna say
Someone
that's
came
that's a good get right there. Yeah.
I mean, it's not the best painting. But it was fun though because I just like took on this new identity of like, it wasn't even like an identity. It was just like, I got so engulfed by like the idea of like painting. It was like fascinating. It was like the only thing that I cared about, and like the only thing I like wanted to like figure out.
Okay,
And
wait. I'm sorry. I keep on going back because
No,
I'm a
yeah.
storyteller, and I'm seeing you
I'm
in
also
Phoenix.
very non-linear, so
No,
it's-
that's what makes you an artist, bro.
I'm like
That's what makes you an artist. You're creating.
We
He's
don't need you to
literally
be. We don't need you to be
creating.
all like, yeah.
So I'm picturing you outside of your apartment complex, and
Yeah.
Ethan says, "I'll pay your rent." And at that point, are you like, "Oh, that's my homie doing me a solid"? Like I'm sure he likes it, or is it like, "Oh, like my work can be bought and sold"?
I think I took it as like he did me solid, like that type of thing.
So 2008, you take it. When does Ethan buy the piece?
Somewhere around like 2008, 2009.
Okay. So you've been painting like, I don't know, 9 to 12 months somewhere.
Kind of, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
your first sale then. Mm-hmm. And then after that, how long until the next sale?
I don't think, I mean, a long time, because I think it was more or less like my friends just kind of being like, "Hey, I have a chair. Will you paint it?" I was like, "Yeah." So I wasn't like really like wanting to make money out of it. It was just kind of like I just want, like mentally I needed to do this.
Man,
So
hold on.
Did you hear Marcus and I? You're like, I didn't want to make money. And both of us were like, huh.
But the second part of that is where I really was exhaling, because do you imagine, it's funny that you did something that you really cared about and the money followed. Like you did something that you were just passionate about.
Yeah.
And again, I get it. I want to get into the marketing
sure.
behind this and the whole, like, there's a game to this whole thing that I really want you to unpack for us.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's like, wow, I would have just painted a paint and just done chairs and done my thing. And then there is a bridge gap between that Jonni and this one. But I like the idea of there is a big mental shift there, being like, wow, I'm just going to do something and dedicate myself to it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that being a painter was a career unless you're like, a Picasso. I didn't go to art school, so like I didn't know. I only knew like the Warhol, Basquiat, Picasso because like that's who everyone knows, that type of thing. I didn't think that I would ever get to the caliber of like being in a gallery or that type of thing. It was just kind of something I was just like, I just want to do this on the side,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So then from the outdoor paintings, like what's the next big jump? Like when do you leave?
Next big jump. What was it?
Somebody had to find you.
No, so I think what was really cool is I lived in this kind of like big community of like friends that kind of understood. It's like, yeah, everyone kind of was just like, yeah, Jonni paints, that type of thing. So everyone understood that like I was becoming this artist type of thing, I don't know. And I was painting in my living room, and I was living in this like the $150 apartment. Was like 4 other guys living in that 2-bedroom apartment, that type of thing. And I was just like in this corner, just like kind of painting and like spray painting like on the door, like the like closet doors and stuff like that. And it was fine. Like it was fun, and it was like everyone just like kind of came in and we all hung out and it was fun, Well, we had another friend group who lived in a house with a garage behind us. So I'm like, hey, can I use your garage? They're like, yeah, of course. So that was like my first like little like makeshift studio. It was cool because like friends like really supported me, I guess, without like saying that they're like, we support everything you do. It was just like, no, like we have a space, like come and use it,
It's a cool community to have.
Yeah. And then that space turned into like Redemption gave me a space at their campus and stuff like that. So I'm like, people were like coming alongside of me this whole time
To support
me.
Yeah.
Even though like I didn't know what I was doing. It was just something that they're like, yeah, like we have space.
Dude, we knew what you were doing before you were doing it. That's kind of the cool part. Is like, I feel like I got behind your work maybe before you did, which is an interesting thing to say out loud. Yeah. But these people obviously saw something in you. And I think that's really, there's 2 things here that I hope are big takeaways. One is you put yourself into a place where people could insert themselves into that story. And the second one is publicly.
Yeah. Like I feel like that's like a big thing.
Yeah.
And then you had a community, which I think that people, if you have a big vision, it takes a lot of people. It takes more people the bigger it is.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this guy here that's standing here probably has a bunch of people behind him.
I mean, not to fast forward to what we'll probably get to, but I mean, though painting, it's like a very like individual thing. I work with so many people that have so many people on their teams, and not so many people, but like, I work with like 4 galleries across the world now, maybe 5. And they have their own network and all that stuff. So like, I'm kind of like being inserted in like all these like different places, and it's a big support system, even though like I'm in a room 10, 12, 15 hours a day sometimes by myself, just painting. There's so much, like there's so many people on the outside, and that's the cool thing. But to go back to being in college or dropping out of college, I just had a lot of people around me that just were really cool and supportive. And like, no one was like, oh, that sucks, or because it did suck, but but like no one was like, you should stop painting. And I think that's why I kept going, or like why like I kept like pursuing painting, because like no one told me to stop. And like also I think that I have like a lot of like, I guess like insecurity about like how I'm being perceived, kind of like what you're saying earlier. But I think that if someone's just like, this is really, can I cuss on here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Come
like,
as you are.
Like, this is really shitty. Like I would be like, oh man, like I'm terrible. Like I suck. It's like this downward spiral of like me maybe being an athlete and kind of being like, oh, I do suck, because that never really happened until I became a full-time artist. I was like, no, I'm going to keep like doing this, and it's fun. And like I still work at Cartel, and like I was actually working
Coffee shop.
But I was also working, remember like Fox restaurant concept?
Yeah, Fox.
So I'd also was working at one of his restaurants. And so I was like 2 jobs, just got married, painting on the side when I could. Yeah.
I just want to pause, and I want to distill a couple things. There's people who are listening, and immediately we want to do is we want to put ourselves in a good story.
Sure.
And so I want to make the story accessible, because what I heard was 3 things. Letting go what isn't serving us, using it as a lesson and not a failure. Cool. Number 2, painting in public. To me, I don't know what that is, because I don't know how else to identify the power that it is, because when I started my career, I would get a lot of photographers asking, but how do I build my business?
Sure.
And my knee-jerk response was, I got business when I was out in public with my camera.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you are just shooting and you show people the thing that you're doing to the unknowing eye, you're doing something successful.
Yeah. I think naturally, like as an artist, a lot of us are like just very like quiet, we're reserved, we're insecure. It's really hard to be vulnerable showing your work.
Yes.
Especially like when you don't even know exactly what you're doing
Yes.
yet, you know?
Yes.
And I think like when you go to a place like art school, for example, like you have critiques and there's always people like with eyes on your work, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't have that. I just had friends that are like not necessarily like
Trained.
artistic
Yeah.
or trained, or, you know, but they're like, this is kind of cool, you know? So like I kind of took it and ran. I think because I did it in a public way, like you're saying, it was really easy for me to kind of like show the work
That's
to
right.
the world, you know?
The process.
Yeah. And
The
just
process.
like, what's the worst someone can say is like, no, like it's fine. So,
And the third thing that I heard was having a community, but doing whatever it took to continue doing the thing. And so I
Yeah.
heard community around you, but then you're like, I also did all this other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Like it wasn't
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I immediately needed to monetize this thing that I'm trying to build. It was, I need to create and then get people around that.
yeah, I mean, I didn't even know what I was trying to create. At that point, it was just, I just need this.
Can I ask you a question that I think is going to be, and I just very curious. So artists, like you look at a blank canvas, for example, where do you know to start? Like, and I think this is an interesting thing for people. Like I get sometimes overwhelmed
Yeah.
by
Yes.
this big open space.
That's right.
And I think that there's so many opportunities for all of us.
Yes.
If you're looking at a canvas, I know this is such a deep question.
No, I know,
But
I know.
But
It's crazy.
I would love to know that, because like there's a lot of transitional things for people to understand.
So for me, in the way that I paint, because like I came from a very abstract background, I guess, you know, like everything I was doing up until that show in London was abstract. It's all about like intuition. You kind of have to like start somewhere and then make a move, adapt. You're putting more or less, you're kind of like figuring out this puzzle that doesn't exist. And it's a tricky thing, but also it's really cool though, because like if you put in the work to do it, you're kind of like, oh, like I can chip away at this, and you know, it doesn't look like anything now. It kind of sucks now. It's nothing. I suck. I'm a failure. But then like you kind of like keep working at it, and you're like,
Literally telling
oh, this
a
is
business
kind of
story.
like,
This is a business story.
This is a
This is a
business
business
story,
story.
I'm a businessman. Bro.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
I'm a businessman.
Say it again. Say it again.
No, but seriously though, this is literally such a great
Yeah.
metaphor for it.
And I think a lot of times too, like people will, you know, they'll be like, oh, you're just an artist. Like all you do is paint and all that stuff. And I'm like, no, I spend all of my time preparing to paint. It's not like a linear thing. It's like you kind of like, you know, peaks and valleys. And
What
all
is
this
prepare to paint?
Preparing to paint. So like how I'm working now is I'm working on figurative work. So like I'm trying to like tell more of a story. So like, and also all my canvases are like sewn together using like different textiles and stuff. So I'm spending a lot of my time just like sewing or trying to figure out what I'm going to paint, because like now I have to make like a good composition, that type of thing, or make a composition with these figures, and like trying to figure out like how to make the fabrics look like the interior scenes that like I'm trying to do. Like if you look at my work, it's easier to explain. But and then also just like prepping the canvases to work, washing the brushes, going to the supply store, just doing like all the busy work. And that's like what I mean by preparing to.
Is that helpful? Because it's funny, if I'm stumped, I go cut the grass. And
I mean, I just go sit down.
yeah, really?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
You just go sit there?
Yeah.
Oh no, that would drive me crazy. Hell no.
Well, I mean, because like for me now is like I can overwork something and I will just be like, oh, like I'm going to work at it until it's like good enough, I guess. But like sometimes taking a step back is so much better. And like, I think I just learned that, like kind of like the last like year or two of making this like figurative work. So I'm kind of like, wait, I don't actually know what I'm doing right now. So I'm not going to keep
Just
working
doing
at something.
something.
Just
This
so
is
I
a whole
can-
word. I just feel like this is like I'm about to stand up with like a hanky because I mean it was like a a sweat hanky, you know, at church.
Got
Come
a
on,
little, like,
that's
the
right, that's
popsicle
right,
stick with,
amen.
like,
Fanning myself. Had a conversation with my husband and business partner, and what he said was, I think you need to take a break.
It's so
And
important.
I was like, no,
Well-
no, it feels unsafe. Like I'm like be alone with my feelings. Like take some time to sew my canvas, my proverbial canvas.
Sure,
like,
sure.
dude, that like takes a level of swagger, confidence. Like,
well, it's also trial and error. I mean, so many years I spent like not taking a break, that type of
Yeah.
thing. So it's, and like I'm a workhorse. Like I love working. It's what I do. Like I love just being in my studio. Like but you kind of get to a point where you're kind of like, I need to like take a step back. That type of thing. And
Just to gain perspective.
yeah, just and like it can literally be like just a step back, just to like 10 seconds, just to actually look at the painting, that type of thing. Because like most of the time I'm like nose to the painting, just trying to figure it out. But I'm like, wait, I don't even know what this actually looks like.
Yeah, I was wondering if you got lost in it sometimes.
Yeah.
And just kind of like, wait a minute, what am I forget what I was doing.
You just like black out, and you're like 5 hours later, you're like, huh? Like
okay, so what's the turning point? So now I feel like I have a really good sense of like an origin story. And I'm sure there's a ton of peaks and valleys in the middle.
Sure.
Did you have a moment where you were like, oh, like this is a career, like this is a business?
Yeah.
Yes. I moved back to Flagstaff in like 2011. And like fully like, understanding like I want to be an artist, like, that type of thing. But we have a mutual friend, Marcus and I have a mutual friend who invited me to like move back up there to like kind of start this like art program after school. I don't know what it was, but at the time it was just like, I don't have like a career lined up. I try to get a job at Yelp.
Yeah. First of all, he did try to get a job at Yelp.
I went two interviews and I was just like, this
is not for me.
Wait, what was the role? Like, I mean,
sales
something like it.
associate,
Yeah.
something.
And it was like, because like
Can you
Bless
imagine
your
Johnny
heart.
right here?
No,
Yeah. I wouldn't have, bro.
No,
you calling people and be like, hey, I'd like to talk to you about your ads. No, thanks.
No, it's so funny though, because like you guys would always come into the cartel.
Yeah.
I forget his name now, but like the manager.
Yeah, Ryan Roylance.
Yeah,
Yep.
him. He interviewed me twice, I think. And like I felt like I kind of like knew him, like we're kind of like buddy because we always like see each other. And like in the interview, like I think I said like, or he what did he say? He's like, why do you think you'd be a good role or a good fit here? And I was like, look, man, like I just don't suck. Like I said that. Like,
What an answer. And it's like, all right, man, I'll call you. You call
yeah. And then like like another girl called me. She's like, hey, like just confirm your interview. Da 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 da. Like the position is like $30,000 a year. Is that okay? And I was like, hell yeah. That's because like I didn't have money at the time. I
Yeah.
was like $30,000. Yeah, let's do it.
30 grand, son?
It was something. Yeah. And I was like, insurance and like all you
yeah.
can eat food. Yeah.
Oh, tech companies would get you with that 25. Like, yo, we'll give you about enough to breathe and live.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
free snacks, free snacks,
can
yeah. Putting greens, ping pong,
and a gong. No. So I moved back to Flagstaff because I was just like, I have nothing else to do. Like literally, I think at that point, this is gonna sound crazy, but like I was planning on moving up to like Oregon and just like living in my car and like that, just doing that whole thing because I was like,
You have no
sounds
other
awesome.
option, right?
yeah.
Gosh, man,
But like I'm also someone that I know how to survive, and I also know how to adapt and figure things out.
Where did
so
this
like,
survival story come from? Because I know we're talking about your origin, but was
Yeah.
there a time that happened to you?
I mean, I moved around a lot as a kid, but like my own personal story is like I moved around a lot as a kid. My parents got divorced when I was like really young. Grew up in like Section 8, that type of thing. So like I don't have financial safety net. Like I never did, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So I was just like, like I'll figure something out. Like I can make $5 last for like 2 weeks if I needed to. I don't think my lifestyle now will let me do that, but like, if I actually had to do it, like I could, and
Yeah.
that's fine, and I'm a very patient person and, anyways, go back up to what was
Flagstaff.
Yeah,
The
Flagstaff,
after school
yeah.
program that you're not
We're
quite sure
really
was an
happy.
after school
Yeah,
program.
really happy, yeah.
I was just like literally like rolling out of bed and like painting on the side of my bed, and I started taking like, I wanted to get into photography just because like, I kind of got to a point where I was like so obsessed with art that like I was learning, I wanted to learn
Mediums, yep.
all the different mediums and like who inspired this person or like, where did this person draw his like, paintings from or like, that type of thing. So like in a sense, I'm like teaching myself art school, just backwards. And I got to a point where I was like trying to, mess with photography and I was like, I took a picture of myself in my kitchen and then I poured paint on it and I was like, it's kind of cool. And just the idea of like, it was like at the time, like selfies were like kind of getting big. And I was like, I want nothing to do with that, so I'm going to cover my face, that type of thing. And
that was like the first one that really went big, right? Yeah.
And then Tumblr was a big thing too. So like
So you poured the
entered-
paint on this photo in Flagstaff.
Yeah,
Okay.
over his face, which was the one that really, I think in the early days when you Google your name, like that one
It
came
still
up everywhere.
comes up. Yeah. So like this is like 2011, 2012, you know, and I put it in this art competition on Tumblr or whatever. And it just like went crazy. And like people were like, you know, picking it up, reblogging it, whatever. And in that competition, I ended up being like a semifinalist in this art space Tumblr thing or whatever. That was the painting that kind of got me to like where I am now, basically. Because like, you know, I put that painting in the right place at the right time. The right people saw it. Those people shared it with someone else. And then eventually Usher called, well, not him personally, but like his assistant called me when I was at work. And
What year is this? So 2011.
Yeah, okay.
People start sharing. The right people share it. Connect with the
Usher
people.
was at an all-time high at that point too.
Yeah. So also I had moved back to Phoenix too. So I went back to Flagstaff for like about a year, maybe a year and a half. I got engaged, moved back to Phoenix. My wife, was living in Tempe. So like I just went back down there to be with her. And so I'm working in restaurants down there, and I'm like setting up the bar one day, and I get this phone call from like a Los Angeles number. So I just didn't answer because I don't know the number. And she leaves voicemail, and I just listened to it. I go to the dish pit, listen to it, and it was like, hi, Jonni Cheatwood. My name is blah, 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 calling on behalf of Usher Raymond. And I was like, wait, what? And I was like, this is weird. So I go to my chef and I was like, hey, listen to this. So like I played him the voice note. He's like, go call her right now. So I was like,
You thought it was fake?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it, yeah.
Also didn't know Usher's government name, by the way. Anybody else know that?
Yeah. So,
No idea.
So,
I thought it was just Usher.
Yeah. So I called her back and I was like, hi, this is Jonni Cheatwood. I just missed your call. She's like, oh yeah, like Usher saw your work on this website called Found. He's like doing like a 20-year performance of like, you know, all of his albums that he's done over the last 20 years. He wants you to pour paint on top of all of his album covers. And I was like, yeah, okay. You know, and she's like, can you come to LA this weekend? And I was like, I mean, I have to work.
I have to get my shift covered.
Yeah.
So we have to get the dish pit covered by
So, but I was like, I'll figure it out, you know? So it ended up not happening, but the project it just got scratched. But he had reached out to me and he was like, hey, like I want to work with you on like some other things. And so the Target thing came from that. And
The Target thing.
The Target thing is the where
UB. So Target and UB collaborated with Usher to do like this school supply line.
back to school, like
And
folders.
yeah, they put my work on it. So my work is in Target and stuff like that. I was like, this is sweet, you know?
You literally went from I poured paint on a self-portrait because I was really against selfies and I put it on Tumblr kind of, to like in LA with Usher and now your work is in Target.
Yeah.
That was how that window of time.
Very fast.
Very fast.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
So really, it's weird to say this, but Usher was kind of the jump off point.
You think?
To
So let me break this down if I hear it correctly. Usher?
it's so interesting though,
Usher
because
came
like,
in.
it's so interesting though because like I did that and then we were going to work on another project with Pepsi and it didn't end up working out. I don't know what happened. There's too many chefs in the kitchen. It just didn't work out. But they agreed to pay me like I don't want to say the exact number, but like
It was
like,
a lot more.
I
than
mean,
usually.
to what I had, you know, it was like very, very good. So I was like, you know what, like I think I can do commercial art, you know, that type of thing. And so I go to my wife and I was like, hey, like I want to pursue this, and she was like, cool, let's do it, you know. So I moved back to LA, and I mean, there's a lot of like struggle in that time because like the money didn't come, and we're in LA, and we're kind of like, oh, like I don't like our car just got repoed, and like my phone just got cut off, and like all this stuff. So it was a really hard time because like I really wanted to make artwork. Like I mean, I dedicated everything to it, you know. Like I just moved my new wife to LA because of it, and it was like I have to figure this out, you know. So I mean, I eventually got paid, and it was fine. But by being back in LA, I got introduced to like this artist residency through another collector who like bought like one of my paintings randomly. And so that is what got me to where I'm at now in like the fine art world, you know?
Yeah.
Just because like I didn't know how the art world worked. I didn't know about collectors. I didn't know about galleries. I didn't know anything.
So can I repeat it back?
Sure.
Somebody bought a painting,
Oh,
introduced
yeah, I left that part
you
out.
to.
Yeah.
Well, no, you kind of alluded to it,
Yeah.
but I wanted to make sure that I heard it right. So somebody bought a painting and introduced you to a residency program, and it's through the residency program that you're like, oh, like this is the game. And if I understand the rules of the game, I can then create my own. But first, like this is where I'm learning it.
Yeah.
Dang.
So that residency,
Where about in LA?
it was in downtown. It's called Hooper Projects. It's no
Okay.
more, but it was started by 2 like mega collectors.
Okay.
I mean, it's crazy though, because you actually have had, because if you go to your studio now,
Sure.
it's not too far from there, right? In
No,
terms
it's
of
like
that.
it's like less than 10 minutes.
But also it's like, I just want to put this in perspective because I feel like I know we're like running out of time and all that stuff, but no, it's all right.
No, because like here's the thing. Like I just feel like do you have an extra like 15 minutes? I
Okay,
want to
cool.
get into
Yeah.
this is where like
The business
the
part is-
business
yeah.
part
This is
of
the
it
one-
that
because
is
it
like
Oh, that's what we're talking about?
no. But it's like, but here's the thing, like Marcus, please do not
please.
forget your question. Is I think it's so important that like people actually hear like taking the call in like the dish pit and then asking somebody in disbelief and then calling somebody coming out here and then it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then like being like, okay, I still think we can make it work. And then coming out here with a new bride, getting a proposed contract that didn't actually work, that caused like a really low point.
Oh yeah.
And then it's like the
yeah.
ability to be like, no, I'm going to figure this out. I feel like it's so important that we like really focus on that part because so many
Yeah,
people
yeah.
are freaking in the dish pit and they're like, I'm done.
I think a part of my personality is like I'm really good at persevering. I get it from my mom. She's Brazilian, came here like when she married my dad and all that stuff. And she was also the one who's just like, hey, like you have every opportunity in the world. Like you're American, you can do all that. You know, like it's stuff you take for granted. But like for her, it's like, no, like you can do anything. So like I think that's where I got like work ethic from, you know, that type of thing. Anyways, so yeah, like, you know.
So you got your work ethic from immigrant parent? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yep.
Yeah, because I feel like that, yes, I resonate.
Yep.
I think a lot of us resonate with that.
Yep.
But it's also interesting because you're in LA, you're doing this piece, but there's also a game to be played. And I think if we have time just to
Yeah.
talk about the
Yeah.
business of it really quick. Before
Yeah,
you,
sure.
So tell us a little bit about how somebody builds out this part of it, because like Jasmine just said, you're getting all this attention now. You have to monetize, capitalize. That's probably not native to you.
No, not
as
at
an
all.
artist.
I mean,
At the residency though, let's go back
Yeah.
because I think people are going to wonder, sorry, I'm like
No, that's right.
belaboring
You
this
should,
point,
you
but I'm
should,
like,
that's
I know that at the end of this, I'm going to get questions. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know how Johnny did it.
Yeah. No,
like,
that's what, okay, well, I do get the question of like, how do you make it as an artist? And I'd say like, there's no 2 artists have the same journey. No 2 artists are ever going to have the same journey, you know? So like what worked for me won't work for someone else. And also too, Instagram wasn't really a thing then, you know? I mean, it was, but it wasn't, you know? So it was, and also the art world is, it's a really tricky place though, because like at that time where I was like coming into the art world, you needed an MFA or like you had to be like, if you were like a person of color, as an artist, like a black artist or whatever, you had to have like gone to like Studio Museum in Harlem or gone to Yale to get your MFA. And like, it's not like a guarantee that you're going to have a career, but like you're going to have like the eyes on you. It's like a built-in audience. I didn't have that, you know? So it was kind of like, I don't know what the art world is. I don't know what it looks like. It's kind of, it sounds cool. You know, whatever. But like, all I know is they just gave me a studio for 3 months and paid for my supplies and I'm just here, you know? So I just made work and that's all. Like at the end of the day, it's just making the work, you know? And I made work that I'd always wanted to make. It was like me stepping away from the whole like drippy thing and all that stuff. And I was just like, you know, trying to find my voice as an artist. And those like 3 months in this residency is like what helped me get to that point, you know? And I think I learned a lot about like how collectors work, about how the art world works, about how galleries work. And if I'm being honest, like there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the art world. And I know that, and I'm kind of like a participant in all this stuff, but I can like separate it because for me, it's the creativity is that it's what drives me, you know? And like me kind of like showing up at my studio and like, that's where I'm like, okay, like this is what I can contribute. The art world is interesting.
okay, so then after the residency and you're
Yeah.
making art and you're finding your voice as an artist, there's like a couple key pivotal things that happen, like TED.
That was recent, and I wasn't there for that, and I wish I was. But yeah, I just had an exhibition in Shanghai, and they came and did a TED Talk at my show there, and I wish. I mean, yeah. I wish I was
So
there,
what?
but-
And what is like the business strategy? Are you a part of this? Like, is it happenstance? Like, what is like? How
Actually-
much of it are you driving, and how much is it like these people surrounding you
Sure.
are being like, you do you, and we're gonna amplify.
It's that now. So like
Okay.
I've kind of gotten to the point where I have that support system around me that we're just like, hey, like we represent you, we represent your work.
So you have an
We're-
agent.
Not like an agent, but
Okay.
like the galleries I work with are kind of like
They rep you.
they represent me, they advocate for me.
So is
they-
this galleries just reaching out to you and being like, we like your work, or are you pitching the galleries?
Well, so it's interesting though, because you're not supposed to pitch it to the gallery, you know, that type of
Yeah.
thing. It's just like historically you're just like they don't read like, you know, emails that just like some
Oh, wait,
random
okay.
Where you
person
reach
like
out to
cold-
them.
yeah. But there's one point where I was just like, fuck it, I don't care. So like I started like, emailing like a bunch of galleries, and then years later, like they never responded, but like years later, they're kind of like, hey, we just saw your work, and I'm like, I'm past that, you know?
Ooh.
Like, so-
That's like Julia Roberts' Pretty Woman moment.
Yeah.
Big mistake. Huge.
you know, but honestly, it's kind of funny. Galleries would like reach out to me, and I think that I was just in the right place at the right time because I was in that residency. You know, a lot of represented artists came out of there. A lot of good artists came out of there. I was just the right place at the right time, and yeah, I just kind of took advantage of it, I guess. You know, and also I'm easy to work with, and I think that plays a part in it.
Yeah, you strike me as that.
But-
Jen.
I was just going to say that I want to somewhat tie a bow because
Sure.
what I hope everybody actually heard is that there's a journey and it's long. And
Yeah.
I think that that's part because there's a lot of impatience in the idea of all these things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, from the time that I got to that residency, I'd already been painting for like 7 years. And I didn't get my first gallery show until 2018. So there's a lot of time where I'm just kind of like, is this actually worth it? How am I logically going to pay my bills? Because like ideas don't pay the bills like immediately, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, you have to like
The
grind it out.
persistence of it,
You
yeah.
have to be persistent. Yeah. I was just like, well, I guess I'm in it now. So like, I have no choice but to
Yeah,
figure it
that's
out.
such a humble thing too, by the way, because the having multiple gallery shows all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
like the fact that we're sitting here not talking, bro, you were making lattes
Yeah.
10 years ago,
Yeah.
and now you've got a show in Hong Kong, or you had a show in London with me.
Mm-hmm.
Like that part for me is just always a very fantastical journey, and
Yeah.
it seems like it's one that is from somebody who actually just didn't give up.
Yeah. And I didn't know what I was doing most of the time. I still don't know what I'm doing all the time. You know, it's just kind of like I'm open to everything. And like, you know, I guess it kind of goes back to the very beginning where I was just like, some things serve me and some things don't, you know, and there are opportunities that come and I'm just like, this is cool. It would have been cool 10 years ago, but like it doesn't serve me now, you know? So you kind of learn to say no and pick and choose and, you know,
Do you know who's buying your paintings? Like, is there somebody that like bought a painting and then you're like, oh my God?
I have a good idea of who buys my work.
You don't talk about it?
Well, some collectors like very private, you know, with their stuff, but also like I'm not an in-your-face type of person, so I'm just kind of like, that's cool. I mean, as long as like you don't flip it right away, then I'm cool.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, people actually do that, Jasmine. So people will buy it, and sometimes like you actually care where it goes.
Yeah.
So you might not want to have to disclose everything, but he knows every buyer because people will take his work, literally go and flip it around and resell it. So he has to be really careful who buys his work. That's where he's at in his career. Is that you kind of have to know
it's
where
a
it
very,
goes.
I mean, this is like a whole other thing, but like this where the art world kind of gets like complicated and like, you know, there's so many like games and all that stuff, but I just like making the work, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. So, like, half of me is thinking, man, Jonni Cheatwood needs a Jasmine star in his camp. But, you know, it was just like, blow. Like, I just think
Yep.
of
Yeah.
everything behind that. I mean, obviously, I'm not pitching myself. That's not what I would do. But,
This is
like,
a really good time to do that.
Yeah.
Like, so like
thanks for
so
coming to the
talk me.
podcast. So,
Yeah, no pressure.
what level would you like? I'm back at down sales.
Are you asking me for a job?
No. But
Like,
like,
it's a weird interview.
how do you feel about somebody coming in? Like, would you ever do that? Like, to have somebody like build out that, or do you think that the mystique is good for? Like, I'm gonna drop a word, and I'm not even sure if I'm using the right context, but like, provenance matters to you, right? And so, in that case, do you think it devalues like to show the process, to show like what is going on as you the creator
Like,
right
if somebody
now? Like,
followed you around and followed this whole career journey and what you're creating and
Yeah,
having
man,
like
like,
more
I
of a
just
social
think
team.
it-
I
and,
think that person would be so bored. To be honest with you, because like like I think like what you see like on my Instagram is like the finished product.
yes,
And I understand how important it is to see the process of certain things, but also too I don't think about, and like I'm not great at social media. I'll just say that up front.
Yeah.
It's not my thing. But like I don't think to stop what I'm doing to be like, oh, I should maybe film this, because like I'm so like into
Yes.
what I'm doing. I'm so into the
Yes.
process. I'm
Yes.
so into like, problem solving that like I don't have like the bandwidth to kind of be like,
correct.
I'm going to film this. I do understand that like, you kind of have to sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't want to, but
Yeah.
I have to. I don't have to do anything.
No,
but
right,
like,
But
right.
yeah,
you know.
there is something to say though about having a team that would literally amplify everything that you're doing and
Yeah.
then offload that to you so that from you so that you can just do the things that you really want to do, which is be in the studio. And yeah, so there's part of that that
And
could
I
be there.
think because like I never knew exactly what type of artist I wanted to be or like where I would end up in my career. I think that now I've kind of gotten to like the gallery part, to the collector part, to the, I'm doing shows. I already know my schedule for the next 2 years, that type of thing. So like there's so much more that I didn't know that I had access to. And I'm kind of like, how do I build this out? Like how do I become like a creative director or something like that? Or how do I be, that type of thing. I'm like, I never thought that this could be a thing. But I also didn't think that what I'm doing now could be a thing, So it's like,
I'm literally having heart palpitations because I was just like, and so then Johnny, we have the NFT. So Provenance is like yours, and then you get a commission off every time it's resold.
I'm not doing NFTs.
But okay, maybe not. But there's
Sorry
not even
to
an
cut you
NFT.
off, but
Not
yeah,
even
yeah.
an NFT
Yeah,
as
yeah.
just as it is like a digital proof of like
Sure,
ownership.
sure.
And how much does that painting mean to have somebody show the process of the creation of it? Like, do you think
Yeah.
that like somebody who's getting like a Basquiat now would love to go back and have a
Yeah,
third party be
100%.
like, it's just
And,
crazy.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of like what goes back into like needing to see the process because I didn't go, like I said earlier, like I didn't go to art school, so like I was looking at other people's process. It's also kind of like, am I not being cool by not sharing my process? But also I'm just maybe like a little insecure about it, and like also like not insecure, but like I don't want people to see the bare bones of something, that type of thing. Maybe it's because my mom's like that, like little Brazilian lady is just like gets dressed up to go to the grocery store, that type of thing. So
Got
it's like
it, got it,
like maybe that's
got
just
it.
like
Yeah, you want the
part of
finished,
like my DNA.
yeah,
But
the
like
finished product.
Yeah. Marcus is gonna laugh, but like I also think that I'm boring when it comes to like all that stuff. So I'm like, no one wants to watch me paint. Like
No, people would love to watch you paint. Do you ever heard of a guy named Bob Ross?
If that's not a sales pitch,
That's first of all, it's
you
a
want
joke.
to be.
It's a joke. But seriously though, I like watching the process, and I think
Yeah.
people there's a beauty in
Yeah.
the process
Yeah.
because the finished product is this guy who shows up, and by all means on paper and on your Instagram and everything else, it's just wildly like kind of unapproachable in a way, and that actually isn't you.
Yeah, true, very true. And I guess also too, like going to like a gallery, a lot of times is like very cold. Like it's an unapproachable business for the most part.
People are trying
That's
to
all.
elevate the value though in that space.
Well,
right?
yeah, but like also too, like if you don't know how galleries work, you kind of like go in, you're kind of like, how much is it to go in here? Like there's like a lot
there's
of
no
like
price tag.
There's no price tag,
Yeah.
but it's like that type of thing. It's like
Yeah.
people are cold, they don't talk. That it's not like a warm place most of the time.
But no, seriously though, I feel like it's really amazing to be able to share an artist's journey because rarely are you doing any interviews at all. And so I value hearing your journey. I value seeing it from the beginning until now. And I feel like it is just anytime that I can actually share kind of my front row seat with the rest of the world, I want to do that. So I know. And by the way, for every listener, this is not what Jonni wants to do, but this is exactly what, this was like a favor, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to hang out with you and talk to you. It's so good meeting you too. But like, no, I mean, this is actually a lot better than I thought it'd be. But it was awesome, you know.
Yeah.
I have to take a second, and I, in closing, just want to make sure that we're connecting the dots. Lesson number 1 was letting go of things that aren't serving you, and understanding that it's not failures and they're lessons. Painting in public, surrounding yourself by a community, being willing to do the work despite whatever outcomes, and then being able to do the work after a promising hope that didn't come to fruition, but like lands into the right people, the right spaces, being able to take an even bigger risk to put you in the right places yet again, to be met with disappointment and car repos, and then to find opportunities and leverage those opportunities like the residencies. And then being okay with who you are, like being okay saying, no, I am not doing that type of art, and I'm not posting it out on social, or doing as much maybe on social. And I know who I am, and I'm going to do it my own way. And I think that if those are like the key takeaways that any creative or artist is listening to right now, I think that would be the biggest shot of dopamine, to be like, do it your own way. And we're living, there's living proof.
Yeah. I think also too, like, I just want to add this in because like, I do get a lot of people asking me about like, where do I go? How do I show my work and stuff like that? Artist residencies are the best thing. You know, there's a website, I think it's called resarts, either .com or .org. And it has a list of like all the residencies from every country. Say you want to go to Berlin, you just like type in Berlin. It'll give you like the list of all the residencies. And some of them are free. Some you have to pay for. Some will pay for your flights and your lodging and all that stuff. Some don't, you know. And another thing too is like, for me, because I had to like, you know, teach myself how the art world works, or like, you know, even like teach myself like art history. I would like go to like the big galleries like Gagosian and Pace, all that stuff, Werner, and like look at their roster, and then I would kind of be like kind of like familiarize myself with
the artists,
like the big artists, like the blue chip artists. And a lot of these residencies will have like their alumni, and then I'm kind of like, oh, this artist went to this residency, so this place has to be legit.
Like so
lineage is very important.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's just with like the contemporary like fine art world. You know, there's like a million different avenues in art, you know,
but
like,
that's a great way to be able to give somebody that kind of route.
Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. Those are like 2 very big takeaways. For those of you who are interested in following Jonni's journey, the end products, of course, you can find him on Instagram at Jonni_Cheatwood. And I want to take a minute and say how much I appreciate what the journey has been with Marcus and with Jonni, but also speak out to the creators who are in like the dish pit answering their phones. Like, keep on pushing. Like you know for certain it will not work if you quit. So to those of you guys who have like strong bellies and like really strong determination, I think I could speak for all 3 of us saying like, we are wishing you the best, and today is not the day that you quit. Thank you for listening to the Jasmine Star Show. It is an honor and privilege to co-create with 2 very amazing artists in their own right, doing their art in their own ways. So
flattered. I've never been called an artist, so this is fantastic. It's my dream.
You're an artist.
It's my dream, bro. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the show.